So everyone knows that functional programming is cool, and you can do marvels with functional programming and other things. But when it comes to implementation, people usually get bogged down. Okay, all these principles, looks good in paper and in an isolated way, but how can I build something end to end meaningful? Okay, so after I build this particular product, I come to a feeling that, hey, this is a nice use case I can showcase to the people of how can we take functional principle and do something useful using it. So this particular talk is all about that particular thing. So two disclaimers. Okay, the first disclaimer is the technique that I'm going to showcase in this talk are already captured in 1970s and 80s. So I'm going to not teach anything new. I'm just going to put some new labels or new representation of those techniques. And the second thing is, knowing Clojure is not the prerequisite for this talk. There will be Clojure code snippets, but don't get into the details of the Clojure side. Just understand at the high level thing. Okay, don't get into the Clojure code, because the objective of this talk is not to demonstrate Clojure. It's to share you a thought process using which you can build systems using function programming. So these are the two disclaimers. Let me start with the problem statement. What was the problem that we actually solved? Okay, so as you might know, that Croma is one of the leading retailer chain in India. They already have close to 130 plus stores across India, as well as they have their own website. And they have a system called order management system, their own in-house tool, which powers, it's a workhorse for their entire operations across stores, across their website, everything. Their back office team uses this order management system to cater the needs of the customers. For example, managing the inventory, managing the pricing, fulfilling the orders, order reconciliation, all those things. This one big order management system will take care, and their back office team interact with this particular order management system and get their job done. In addition to this, Croma also sells their product in different marketplaces like Tata Click, Amazon, and Flipkart. The problem is there is a disconnect between how they operate for their stores and its own website and this e-commerce portal. Their order management system does not know how to interact with the marketplace. So there is a clear disconnect. From the operational side, Croma has to spend a lot of time and energy, because they now need to train their people on 2 systems, or actually 5 systems to be precise. Their order management system, and one for each e-commerce portal, there will be a seller portal where they can log in and they can manage all these things. So what Croma wanted to have is a middleware which understand the source as well as the target system, acts as a bridge and translate the data, so that from the back office team, they will be working only with their order management system. If you look at from the high level, a Croma, a brick and in-place store is similar to what a Flipkart. The only thing is, it is a physical form, another one is in virtual form. But store is a store. So their order management system can do it, but unfortunately it is not able to do it. The reason being, it's a different system altogether. So that's the problem that through this middleware we are trying to solve. So the success criteria for this particular product is the Croma's back office team should work only with their order management system. They should not go to their seller portals of respective e-commerce portals. They should do their operations. And when they did that operation, that should reflect on the marketplace. So that's the overall problem statement. Got the idea of what is the problem? Cool. Okay, let's get into the system requirement of it. Okay. So the back office team perform their operation in their order management system. When they perform some operation, OMS communicates this information to the outside world through IBM MQ, a messaging solution like RabbitMQ, Kafka. There is a IBM tool called IBM MQ. Basically a queue. This particular order management system pushes whatever when a back office personnel did something, this order management system communicate to the external system through this message queue in the form of messages. The middleware that we built consumes this message queue and perform the corresponding HTTP operations on the marketplace. So that's the system requirement. In addition to that, this marketplace middleware is kind of a headless system. It just consumes messages, did some action on an HTTP side. So in addition to that, that marketplace middleware has to log what it is doing in database so that the back office team can do some audit logging check. And we also had another requirement saying that there are some key events, say for example, some order delivery failed or some key events, they want to do a Slack notification so that the back office team can immediately act. It's again a logging only, but it's a different way where when we log something to the Postgres, they can see when they actually need. But if they need to act immediately, we'll need to send a Slack notification. So this is the, now we got to know the functional requirement of the system, and this is the implementation requirement of the system. Now we saw both the sides. What is the real challenge of this particular project? There are 12 different types of messages. Okay, to name a few: ranging, deranging. Basically, this is a convention used by Chroma. When we say ranging, it means turn on the visibility of a product or an SKU in a marketplace. Say for example, you were selling a product and you don't want to show that particular product to the customer anymore. You can perform a deranging operation which turn off the visibility. After some time, maybe you got the stocks. Now you want to turn on the visibility, then you will be sending ranging. Likewise, there is a messaging for pricing which modifies the price of a product. Likewise, order confirmation, order return, there are a bunch of messages like that. 3 different target systems. We need to perform this operation against TataClick, Flipkart, and Amazon. 4 different data representation. For example, take a product. The unique identifier is SKU in Flipkart. It is item ID in TataClick. It is ID in OMS. So, but virtually everything is same. But the way that is encoded in each of this system is different. So when we are integrating with all the system, we need to take into the consideration of this difference in representation. And the big elephant, error handling. Since it is a distributed system, there are a bunch of things will fail. So we need to consider that as well, like invalid messages, invalid configuration, and other things. Now come to the interesting part of the talk, where how can we go about and implement this marketplace middleware. We got an idea of what the problem is. We have got an idea of what the requirement of the system, and we identified the challenge also. Now we are going to do the real solutioning, where we are going to address all these 3 things. Okay. A typical approach that I personally do is have a high level flow of the data. That is one of the technique, kind of mind map. Okay. So here, if you look at from a high level, this is what we need to do. When we receive a message, we need to log it so that it will be used for auditing. And then we need to parse the message and find out what is the message is all about. Then we need to check whether it is intended for a valid channel, like whether it is intended for Flipkart, TataClick, or some random channel. If it is valid, then perform that particular operation in the marketplace. If it is intended for TataClick, perform this operation on TataClick. If it is intended for Flipkart, do this operation on Flipkart. And finally, if it success, put that into the success log. And all the errors, put that into the respective error logs. So this is the mind map of the problem statement or a system design. Now translate that mind map into some form of to-do list. Okay, this is another development practice that I do. So bunch of tasks, then we will be going to tick each of these tasks. So the first task is we need to read the message from IBM MQ and dispatch them to some handler. Handling the message has two things. One is parsing the message, then processing the message. Those two constitute the handling message. And of course, we need to log all the events happening in the system. Out of all these tasks, parsing needs to be polymorphic. When I say polymorphic, what I mean here is the message can be of different types. As I told, like there are 12 types: ranging, deranging, pricing. So that particular step needs to be polymorphic, and processing the message is again polymorphic because the way we process the message for Tata Click is different from the way we process the message in Flipkart. And of course, when we do the logging, we need to log into Postgres as well as to Slack in case of some immediate, some important events. The very first thing that we do in functional programming is we separate or isolate the application boundaries. In this particular task list, reading the message, doing the logging, these two are application boundaries. Let's ignore this for a moment. We will come back to that later, but to get started, we are just going to ignore or isolate the application boundaries and going to focus on the crux of the problem. Okay. So the crux of the problem is handling the message. Handling the message has two tasks: parsing and processing. So from now on, you are going to see some diagrams with some color codes associated with it. So if you see a block with a green color, it is a business logic. It's a logic. When you see something on blue color, it is a polymorphic logic. Since parsing and processing are polymorphic, I'm using the color code blue here, and the handler is the actual logic. That's in green color. We will be using this diagram heavily, or the color code heavily, in the upcoming slides. Okay, now gets into the parsing side of it. So this is how a typical ranging message from modern management system would look like. XML. The interesting part is this channel ID and the EAN, item ID, and the range flag. Here what they are saying, for the channel ID UA, for the item ID SKU1, enable it or make it visible. For the channel ID UB, again UA, UB are some identifiers. UA can represent a Tata Click, UB can represent Flipkart. So that's immaterial here. I'm just using some unique identifier. So this is what they are communicating. And what is the output that we want out of parsing is what you are seeing on the down. So when we receive an XML message, we need to transform that to some form so that it can be processed by the subsequent downstream systems. When I say processing, what we need is some sort of a data structure where the program can manipulate. XML by itself is a data representation, but it is kind of difficult to do some transformation and processing. So what we did over here is transforming that to a closure map. Okay, think of that as a hash map. So what we did over here is we just grouped by the channel ID. For the channel ID UA, these are all the items that we need to range. For the channel ID UB, these are all the items we want to range. So that's what parsing is all about. Yeah.
So if there are two entries with EAN 1, 2 entries, then would it be a subtree or it would be another?
Here I'm just grouping by the channel ID. I'm trusting the upstream system that it will be sending only once for a given item.
No, what I'm asking is you are grouping by channel ID.
Yes.
Is there like group of groups? For example, EAN, 2 times UA has come. So you have there are 2 JSON. Is it JSON?
It's a closure map.
Okay, closure. So there are 2 closure maps inside a channel ID.
Yes.
If there are 2 EAN 1, like just SKU1, SKU4, both have EAN 1 as the.
We are not grouping by EAN here. It's just a simple group by operation. Group by based on channel ID because we are operating at the channel level.
Okay.
See, that's what here again. That's what don't get into the details. Just get a high level idea of what we are doing here. So what we are trying to do here is for the channel ID UA, perform ranging operation for all these items. For the channel ID UB, perform ranging for these items. So that's what the parsing logic is. Now, since it is a data representation, Clojure can manipulate it and it can transform and it can do whatever it wishes, which is not possible in the XML way. That's why we are doing the parsing in the first place. So likewise, there is a pricing message. Again, pricing message. The interesting part here is the channel ID and the item ID. And for here, this example, we are saying for the channel ID UA, for the item ID 194521, the MRP is 1000 and the offer price is 999. The parsed representation would be again very similar, a Clojure map with the channel ID backed up by the items. This is extremely annoying. No, in each slide.
Up to the top where you have the title, you might not have to change language.
Yeah. No, it is not a collab. Okay, I guess I may not have something over there, so it would be good.
You can try the three dots button. Green bar. There's an up arrow next to your title.
No, next to the green. This one.
Yeah.
No, green, banner, up arrow.
This one.
That's top to top.
Okay, no problem. I guess I may not have something over there. Oh, super. Thank you. Good. So, yeah. Sorry for the detour. Okay. So, now we identify what we need to do for parsing. Let's see how it is going to look like. As I said, parsing is going to be a polymorphic function. Okay. Here, the blocks represent a function. And how are we going to call this function? The parse function is going to take a map, which is going to have three properties: ID, a unique kind of a correlation ID to represent that map message, the real message that we got from OMS, and what is the type of the message. So here in the first block of the code, I am just calling the parse function with the ranging message. In the second block, I am calling the same function with the type pricing message. So this is the caller. The implementation. The new color code here is the orange one. Orange one says a specific implementation of a polymorphic function. Think of like an interface and an implementation. So we have a parse function, and on the left side what we have is a parse function implemented for pricing. On the right side we have a parse function implemented for ranging. And so that's the functionality. How do we do it in Clojure? Very simple. Create a folder. I'm just naming it as a folder called middleware, and I'm creating a core file. Core file is something like an index.js in Node. It's a kind of a entry point file in Clojure. It's a kind of naming convention. Here I'm gonna say parse is a multi-function. Multi-method. Okay, multi-method is kind of a polymorphic. How do we implement polymorphism in Clojure is through one of the ways multi-methods. Think of like I'm defining an interface called parse. But in typical interface, what we do is just we define the behavior. It will not do a dispatch. Dispatch is actually happening through types by the compiler or at the runtime by something else. But here, what we are telling Clojure is, hey, I want this parse function needs to be polymorphic, but dispatch it based on the type. So it is going to look at the ranging message, and it is going to call a ranging implementation of the function. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm creating another file, Clojure file called ranging. There I'm going to write the actual implementation of ranging. If you look at, I have the def method. It says the function, the method name, and what is the type it is solving. It is meant for ranging. Think of like an interface implementation. Like this particular implementation is meant for ranging. And the implementation of this function is immaterial, so I'm just leaving it as dots. As you might have guessed, what would happen for pricing? Very similar. In the same middleware, I will be creating another file called pricing. There I will be putting the pricing implementation. Okay. So in terms of the overall progress, now we take parsing side of it. Let's step into the processing side of it. Okay. So what we mean by processing? Okay. Ranging on Tata Click would look like this. This is the paused message. We grouped by channel ID, and these are all the items that we wanted to process. And in Tata Click, when we do ranging, it transforms to a HTTP method call. Here I'm just calling some endpoint, the post request with some data. One key thing to notice here is that there is in Tata Clicks, in OMS, a product has a unique identifier called ID. But the same ID representation in Tata Click is called SKU. So we need to do the data transformation also. So this is for ranging on Tata Click. Likewise, pricing on Tata Click would look like a different thing. Basically, we will be calling a different HTTP endpoint. Same way with the different, the ID will be transformed to SKU. Basically, what we are doing is we have some data. We need to transform it and call some HTTP endpoint. Okay, that's a high level thing. Now we saw how to do ranging and pricing in Tata Click. The same ranging and pricing on Flipkart would look like similar but a different HTTP endpoint, different request body. Here, what you are seeing right now here is they have a complete different JSON representation altogether. Their SKU is the key and the listing status is active. So these are the transformation that we need to do. Thankfully, both users bear simple authentication scenario, so that we are not bothered about that particular thing. But we need to hit a different endpoint, different data representation. Pricing would look similar. Okay, similar, different endpoint, different request body. So now get into the process function. Again, process is a polymorphic function. It is going to vary based on the type of the message it is processing. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to define that particular function called the process. That is going to take two messages. One is the real message that we got from OMS, which is ID, message, and type. And the second one is the paused message. So the implementation would look like this. The process is going to be a function. It's a polymorphic function that is going to take two parameters, but it is going to dispatch based on the type of the OMS message. That's what I'm saying here. The process is a function, is a polymorphic function that sees what is the type of the OMS message and it dispatches. Someone has to take care of implementing the actual implementation. Here I'm just going back to the ranging file again. Earlier in the ranging file, I had an implementation for parsing. Now I'm going to add an implementation for processing. So I'm leaving it as to do. We will come back to that little later. As you might have guessed, pricing will be similar. I will be touching the pricing file, creating a new process. There I'm saying this particular process is meant for handling pricing, and there will be an implementation will be there. So now we are halfway through processing. Let's get into processing a specific message, which is the ranging message. So in order to do a ranging message, processing a ranging message, we need to do two more things. The first thing is we need to get the channel configuration. You have seen that when we want to perform some operation on a channel, what we need is the HTTP endpoint, some authentication key and other things. So that's what this channel configuration is all about. So given a channel ID, it is going to throw me what is the endpoint that I need to hit, what is the authentication key that I need to use. That's a channel configuration. And of course, updating that particular channel, which is again a polymorphic. That's why you are seeing blue in color, because the way we do ranging in Tata Click is different from the way we do ranging in Flipkart. So getting channel configuration is going to be very simple. Throwing an ID, it is going to respond back with what is the channel name, what is the base URL, what is the bearer token. So I'm going to implement this in another folder called infra, where I'm going to create a config.closure file, where I'm going to have this implementation. Okay. Keep eye on the folders that I'm creating. I will come back to that little later. There is a meaning to, that's why it is there. Okay. Now getting the channel configuration is done. Next logical step is updating the channel. Again, it's a polymorphic. So this is how that process ranging polymorphic function would look like. It's going to take three parameters. OMS message is that we already know, the actual message that came, paused message, which is the ranging or pricing, and the channel configuration. It has to dispatch based on the channel name. So that's what we are going to do. So we are under ranging. I'm going to create a new multi-method, a polymorphic implementation saying that, hey, if someone calls you, look at the channel name and dispatch it to that guy. Now we need to have an implementation for Tata Click and an implementation for Flipkart. So all I'm going to do, create a new folder called Marketplace. Under that, I'm going to create a new another new folder called Tata Click. There I'm going to do a ranging operation. There is going to have Tata Click specific ranging implementation. Same thing for doing ranging operation on Flipkart. So I'm going to create another folder Flipkart under Marketplace, creating another new file called ranging. There I'm going to have the implementation for how to do ranging operation in Flipkart. Let's get into one more level deep where we are going to do actual processing of ranging message in Tata Click. Okay, this is the level. From this we are going to move up. So there are two tasks that we need to accomplish here. We need to transform that object. Remember that we have ID in OMS. It has to be transformed to SKU in Tata Click before we do the operation. So what I'm going to do right now, under ranging, I'm going to have that function which takes this input, transform that to what Tata Click expects. This function just transform it, and then I'm going to have an API client where I'm creating a new file called api.closure under Tata Click. There I'm going to have a ranging function which will do the actual HTTP call. So the processing of ranging would look like this. So we get all the items from the ranging message, transform that, and then perform the ranging operation in Tata Click. So this is how the implementation of ranging operation in Tata Click would look like. Now rinse and repeat for Flipkart. You have anything? Okay, sorry. Okay. So now what we need to do is rinse and repeat for Flipkart. Again, I'm going to create a new file called ranging.closure and api.closure under Flipkart. Just do the same activity. But you got the point, right? We have a core function which dispatch based on some things like for message it is using the message type, for channel it is using the channel name, and it is dispatching. Then we have specific implementation where we have the actual implementation logged in. So with that particular thing also done, the only thing is processing. So the processing of the ranging message would look like this. We get the channel config and do the processing. As simple as that. So I'm just I'm iterating through all the ranging message, get the channel wise ranging message, then getting the channel configuration, performing the ranging. With that, processing is also done. Now we tick these two things. The final part is the handler part. The handler part earlier we implemented as to do. The implementation is very simple. Pass the message, process the message. That's what handle do. And it does not care about actual specific implementation. Here the handle logic, that's the definition, right? Handle logic should parse the message and process it. And that's what we are doing here. Again, I'm focusing on the happy path right now. We'll get back to the error handling at the later stages of the slide. So that's what handling the message. With that, we solve the crux of the problem. And you would like to see the outcome? This is what it is. Nice, simple representation of what we did so far. I'm just reiterating what we did so far. There is a function, handle. That handle function will be doing two things, parsing and processing. Parsing is a polymorphic thing. So it just do a dispatch. There will be one specific implementation for doing a parse implementation of pricing, parse implementation of ranging. Then we have process. Again, process is a polymorphic. Polymorphic, one for pricing and another one for ranging. Then when it comes to pricing, we need to do a process pricing. Okay, let me take this ranging because I have branches for this. So process ranging, again, is a polymorphic. It's gonna branch out based on the channel name. So there is one logic for Flipkart, one logic for Tata Click. Flipkart or Tata Click just do a data transformation. There is an API client. All the pieces are isolated and nicely fit together. No hi-fi design pattern or nothing. Simple functions organized in a cleaner way. And when we zoom this out, what we are getting is a pretty clean way of solving the problem. And whatever we have seen so far is an action, the integration, operation, segregation principle. Okay, have you come across this principle before? Okay, one of the very common principle, but not highly communicated in the programming community. Okay, the principle says a module should either contain a business logic or integrate other modules, but it should not do both. Here the module is a function, any reusable piece of code. A module can be a class in object-oriented programming, but in functional programming, here the module means a function. If you look at all the things in green, or maybe other, is the core logic. And there are business logic and there are integration logic. If you look at this particular leaf level things, leaf level is the business activities. The one at the root are nothing but integration modules. This function, this handle function does not do anything. It just integrates parse and process. What is the actual parsing? That's a leaf thing. That does not care who is consuming my parse and what is doing with that. So this is a cleaner representation, and this is a lovely principle. And I really recommend you guys to spend this some time on this principle. So even if you're not going to do functional programming, this principle holds true in object-oriented programming also. Okay, and come back to a sweet folder structure. Okay, I have a strong feeling of or a strong affinity towards folder structure in all my projects. Okay, the metaphor that I always use is, think of you are building a home. The first thing that you will come up with a blueprint, isn't it? When you see the blueprint, you will clearly know, hey, this is where the living room is going to be. This is where the bedroom is going to be. This is where the kitchen is going to be. This is where we are going to have car parking and other things. You can clearly identify from the image itself. Take the metaphor, look at the folder structure. When you look at your folder structure of your project with some context, without context you cannot make sense out of it. Like the same context for blueprint also, right? Like you need to have some context associated with it. Likewise, given that I have a business context to you, if you look at the folder structure, you can clearly identify. Say for example, now I am throwing you a new thing. Okay, something happened to Tata Click API. They are changing the response structure or they are changing the request body structure. What is the place that you will be touching? You will be touching the Tata Click API. And there is some business logic changing in ranging operation in Tata Click. What will you be touching? You will be touching the ranging. See, it's not only cleaner separation at the functions level. We are also having cleaner separation at the files level. And if you have a folder structure like this, when it comes to the developer who is going to maintain the code will thank you. Okay, now come back to the problem that we are solving. Okay, we solved only the crux of the problem. There are, that outside boundaries and error conditions needs to be handled. So let me focus on that. So reading the message from IBM MQ and dispatching them to handler. Very simple. Our handle function does not know who is the consumer. It can be anyone. Right now, what I'm going to throw right now is I'm just going to add some new nodes on top of that. That is going to happen to be a message listener of that IBM MQ. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to add a new function, which is a listener. That listener is going to get some OMS settings for which queue I need to listen to. And when it receives something, it's going to call the handle function. That's it. My rest of the layers stay intact. This is the benefit that you are getting out of separating the application boundaries from the actual crux of the problem. If we separate this out, what we get is an implementation like this. Again, to get the reading message and IBM MQ, what we are actually doing over here is there is no IBM MQ client for Clojure, by the way. So what we are leveraging is Java's client. Since Clojure has first class interoperability with Java, we are just going ahead and using the Java library. So what I'm doing here, I'm going back to the info directory, defining the OMS thing, where I'm saying I'm creating a message listener and then defining specific consumer for each message. OMS convention is like each message goes to different queue. Here what I'm saying is, hey, look at this, listen to this queue, and whenever you got any message, dispatch that to the handle function. Now the first item is kick. The pending item is logging the events. So logging the events, just do a quick recap. We need to do Postgres as well as to Slack. One more functional principle. Okay, this principle is called boundaries. Okay, again, there is a great talk around this subject. You can find the link over there. I will be sharing the slides later. But the crux of this particular principle is when you are designing a system using functional programming, there is a technique called imperative shell functional core. Basically, your crux layers should not do any side effects. It should express what it wants to do by means of some data. The outer layer consumes this data, perform the real operation. Okay, this is the philosophy of this particular technique. Coming back to our problem statement, when we want to save something to Postgres, what we want is some insert statement. How can I express it? Okay, this is my own version of that boundaries principle. Don't do express. Again, I'm repeating, don't do express. What I mean here is instead of performing an operation, express what you intended for. Here I'm just saying, hey, I got a message from OMS and this message is of name, items range, and this is my payload. I'm just expressing this information. What are you going to do with this information? Are you going to communicate this to Slack? Or are you going to put this into Postgres? This is none of my problem. I mean, when I say none of my problem, what I mean over here is the crux layer, the functional core. Same thing for ranging, the success operation. When something happens, see here in this case, I performed a ranging operation and it got succeeded. Here I am expressing that as well. What is the message, when it is happened, what is the payload, and what is the channel, and this other information. Now come back to the actual log layer. Okay, log in general, logger has a technique called log appenders. You can add n number of appenders to your logging mechanism. All the logging framework supports that. Here in this case, we want a database appender as well as a Slack appender. And the imperative shell in our particular implementation is going to be, one is the message listener and another one is the log writer. These two are at my application boundaries, and rest of my layer, I'm not touching it at all. So here come back again, the functional core is going to be, earlier we just performed that operation. After we perform that operation, we are just expressing this message. Here it is not doing anything, it is just creating the data structure that I showed you earlier. Likewise, at the boundary, what we do, from the handle function, I'm writing that to a log. Basically, you are asking the crux, the functional core to perform some operation. After it performs that operation, it is going to express some data structure. Then at the application boundaries, you are just writing the log. Coming back to the imperative shell, we need a log now. So I'm just creating a new log file under infra where I'm going to do a typical info, debug, error, and other stuffs. And the library that I'm using has support like multiple appenders in the form of data structures. Again, here I'm saying, hey, I want two appenders. One is a database appender, another one is a Slack appender. Then I have another appender, log appender folder where I'm having actual logic for writing into database, actual logic for writing into Slack. Again, if you look at the folder structure, I'm not touching anything. I'm just adding a new log appender and there writing Slack. Now we have achieved all the things except error handling, and this is how our folder structure look like, and this is how the existing architecture of our core logic looks like. So if you look at again, we added the logging functionality as well as message consuming functionality, but the layers that we touched is very minimal. And there is something called open close principle, right? Exactly what we need is the representation of that. We haven't touched the existing piece. We added something on top, the problem solved. Now coming back to the last piece, the error handler. Okay. Again, don't do express. Like how you express success operation, express the failures as well. Here I'm saying ranging passing failed. I'm associating with some error payload saying that why it failed. Same thing for some invalid channel configuration. Here I'm saying this particular channel ID not found. Likewise processing. Now, so far we were just handling it. Now we are going to handle with cache. Recently, just going to add some. We are going to add some try cache to it. And in the cache, we are going to pass something. Here in this case, we are handling. We are just passing. And just doing some validation based on some spec. Here I'm going to say whether this particular message is adhering to this spec. If it is not, I'm going to say it's an invalid message. I'm saying this is a passing file. And already we have a Slack appender. So when it got this event, it is going to write to the Slack saying that, hey, I got some random message in the channel. And this is a real message from the production by the way. So since we already have all this logging appender and other things configured, all those things, the core layer just need to express this. Log will take care of writing that thing. As a matter of fact, in the Slack appender, we have a filtering logic. Not all the event needs to be returned to Slack. So we filter that over there. We just do the operation. As a matter of fact, there is that logging framework also. You can filter at the log level. Like I want only info. I want only debug. I want only one. I want only. There are some way of we can filter that so that only specific appenders will get called. Same way, processing also we need to handle with cache. And I'm just throwing a try cache in case if it is an error or sorry exception. I'm just gonna return a data structure saying the processing has been failed. And look at what are the pieces that we touched for error handling. Only handle function and process function. Rest of the layer stay intact. And we achieved our objective. Again, open course principle in action. And this is the summary. So whatever we have seen so far is inspired by these two classic papers, one from 70s and another one from 80s. On the criteria to be used in decomposing system into modules. Amazing paper. I strongly recommend all of you to read. It's not a typical CS paper where there is no mathematical expression. You can just sit, relax and read. It's kind of more around architecture side, computer science paper. He talks about what we are seeing in the small pieces, right, is nothing but I have divided into small chunks. What is the criteria you have used to define all these chunks? Basically, single responsibility principle. That's what this first paper talks about. You need to build systems into small, digestible, easy to reason about kind of a modules. But based on what criteria? One of the criteria that I used was API logic is separate, data transformation is separate, handling is separate. So those are the key criteria. But if you go through the paper, you will get a lot of idea about the mental model behind how to chunk and get those things. And the second paper lists a language for stratified design. Another this three kind of a thing that I talked about, right? This layer depends on this layer depends on this. It's nothing but a stratified design. In typical design patterns, what we have is different layers. In stratified design, is the same, I should not say same, similar kind of a thought process. Where in upper layer talks to lower layer, something like that. Whereas in stratified design, you think of like a rock, it sits on top of each and everything. It's not layer per se. I explaining that stratified design is a talk by itself. So I'm not going to get into that particular thing. I recommend you guys to read that particular thing also. It talks about that composability that we are getting out of it. As a matter of fact, this is those two things. So if you like what we have seen so far, and if you like to implement those things, read those two papers, have fun. And this entire implementation that what I have shown so far, I have written a detailed blog series of how to implement this in Clojure. This is the link for that one, where I talk about every individual steps, and I'll be implementing all those things in that each blog post. It's kind of a 6 or 7 part series where I have mentioned about all these things. Okay, that's it.